Hey guys, Phil here, Zonmaster, Ruby on Rails, etc, etc. Today I'm going to take a gem that worked under Rails 5 and move it to working under Rails 6. Let's go. So you know how it is. You have an app that worked under Rails 4 and Rails 5 and everything was great, and you depended on some gems, and then Rails 6 came along and screwed up everything. And that's kind of the state I'm in actually with Zonmaster. I've always said I'll be 100% transparent on this channel, and so yeah, we're talking about Zonmaster here that right now is sitting on Rails 5, and it would be great if I could move it to Rails 6, not just because I want to use some new sexy features, but it's always good to try and keep up to date. But the thing that's holding me back is this gem called Millia. Or I think it's called Millia. That's how it's spelled. I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced. So Millia is a tenanting system. And what I'm going to do is I'll maybe put some things on the screen to explain this as I go along. But the way that it works is that you have a model object called Tenant, and a tenant is your customer on a website, and you want to silo your customer's data, right? So you don't want this customer to be able to see this customer's data. So you want to silo that. So this is what Millia does. And you have the tenant, which is kind of the master of all the data underneath it. And then you have users that are used to access that tenant. And then you have data underneath. And not all data in your system, of course, is tenanted. You may have subscription plans or something like that that are shared across all tenants, but a lot of data is tenanted. Like, let's say in the case of Zonmaster, you have things like Amazon orders or customer information or things like that that are all specific to that tenant, and this tenant should never ever be able to see that tenant's data. And that's what Millia helps us with. Awesome stuff. There's a couple other gems that do similar kind of thing in slightly different ways. And because it's in slightly different ways, I can't move to those gems very easily. I just want to have Millia, and I just want to be able to use it on Rails 6. So what I decided to do, in a crazy kind of way, is just update the gem myself. How hard can it be, I said. I've said that to myself so many times in my life, and it ends up being pretty hard. But in this case, it wasn't so bad, and so I'm going to walk you through that. Let's just close this. And we're going to switch over and take a look. So we're bigger. So this is Millia. And it's a Rails 5 gem. And it gives a bunch of things. The primary thing being these classes here that act as tenant, say that this model is going to be tenanted. We say acts as universal, which means that this model is not going to be tenanted, but it still has a tenant ID column. I don't use this class so often, to be honest, but anyway. We act as universal, but determines the account, and this is used really for the user account. So the users, of course, you don't know who the tenant is at the time you need to figure out who the user is, so the users are kind of universal, but they figure out who the tenant will actually be. Another one, that's on members, and then another one is act as universal and determines tenant. And then what is the current tenant ID, set current tenant, and so on. So those are the primary methods. So all of this is fine, and all of this will work in Rails 6. It's just the structure of this gem doesn't seem to work under Rails 6. So what I did is port that over, and let's talk a little bit about the differences and the similarities. So over here, I created a gem called Philia. Because you have Millia. My other choice of a name was Vanillia, because I thought Millia, Vanillia was kind of funny. But I created a gem called Philia, which is the Rails 6 port. You can get this on GitHub if you want. I'm not giving any guarantees or anything like that. So let's look at what is different. So let's close it all up and let's start at the lib directory. So kind of similar. Lib, generators, Millia, and the Millia RB. So what I did is I started with a Rails generator to generate an engine, because now this kind of thing works better as an engine as opposed to a gem. There's not a huge bunch of different, that's kind of semantics, not a huge difference between gems and engines. But let's take a look. So I have my Filia model here. And you can see all of this stuff here, this requiring. We don't need to do that so much in an engine. Things are much cleaner and nicer in an engine. But this is still the same. All of this stuff that sets whether you're using a coupon, reCAPTCHA, and all the rest of that stuff, this is all pretty much the same. I can just port it over because it's the structure. And I can put this stuff down here. We can use requires, and we don't have to use these files and so on and so forth. So it looks a lot nicer. And then we have the actual code, which again, you're going to say, well, it's exactly the same, Phil. You didn't actually write anything. You just copied it. Well, it is very, very similar. But the big difference came in the generator. And, you know, something like this, you really need to have a generator. It's quite complicated in the way that you need to set this thing up, because you're requiring devise. This is all built on top of devise as well. So let's go through and take a look. There's a few key differences in here. And it was kind of cool to do this. I'd never really written one of these before, so if you guys have been writing generators and gems and things like that, this is going to be old hat to you. But for me, it was kind of new. Let's take a look here. So we need to go through, uncomment some lines when devise creates its migration, and set things up, and uncomment some lines. It's really cool what you can do in these generators. So you can say, okay, in this file, uncomment the line that says tenant ID and user ID. In roots, put in new roots, obviously, because the roots for Filia are different. So you get rid of devise's definitions and you put these Filia confirmations. And inject into files, so we're going to change what kind of things are in the devise definition. We're going to change the stuff that's inside of Tenant RB. We're going to remove the belongs to, all of this stuff. So what we can do is alter these files automatically, which is a pretty neat thing you can do. I wasn't really aware that it was so powerful, but of course it would be. You need to do it. And then we come into setting up the Filia member. So this is like running stuff from the command line. We're generating a resource, which is a member with the columns here. And then after we've generated the tenant, which we do up here somewhere, we generate the model tenant here. And we've already removed a line. And then we're going to change, some member associations and inject everything into a file. And we set up our environments, everything like that. So it seems like, it's not hugely complicated. It was just matching the structure. And I ended up with a generator, and I'm just going to go up here and let's get rid of that and just create it all over again. I'm so confident that we just need to do these simple steps here. So we're going to, oops, what happened there? We're going to create the new app. So I'm now on Rails 6, and I'm using Ruby, I think 2.7. Okay, not the latest, but it's good enough for our purposes. So we're just going to create a new Rails app. that we're going to use MySQL. I'm kind of trying to recreate something that looks a bit like ZonMaster. So you don't need that. So it's going to install everything. On the Webpacker and stuff like that. So while I was doing that, how did I, so the big thing that I needed to change was inside the generators and the structure. So we have these controllers here, and you notice that they're not in the right module space, not in the right namespace. They should be under a controllers. They should be under a Millia in the other one, but they're not. So we've updated that space. Namespace. We get rid of some extraneous. It's not using the latest version of Devise, so we change some of the things for Devise. We add in some new views, and I switched them to ERB. For whatever reason, Millia came with Haml, and I just don't use Haml. So I gave some ERB classes for the creating a new registration and new members. So we're still using a lot of Devise. I don't think we do anything else in here. And then all of these classes. So where are we? So we've done that, and let's go back. So we're going to go into the app that we create, and we're going to add Devise to the bundle. So go out and pull in Devise, and then I'm going to put my local dev version, but I have put it up on GitHub now, so if you want to use it, you can use it. Let's just bundle to get that Filia installed. And then we can run our installer. So let's take a look. And that's interesting. Oh yeah, I deleted a file. That was stupid of me. This one didn't need that. Let's just do it again. I'm gonna go out. It's gonna make sure Devise is installed. It's generating the Devise user. It's replacing all the things in the Devise user that we need. So we can step by step through the install the generator here. Generators, I guess they seem to work in alphabetical or in order from top to bottom. I couldn't quite figure out how that was called, but so we're going to go through. When we're setting up Devise here, you can see insert into app models user. So that's where we're here inserting. I'm adding trackable, and then we oh no, that's G sub. Because the insert's up higher. And then we find our migration for the creating of the users, and we uncomment any lines that say confirm, and then we add in all the fields for trackable that are already in the Devise migration, but they're commented out, so we want to uncomment all of those. And then we want, so that's what we're doing here. Then we are going to update the Devise initializer and set a mail sender. And what's that one? Here we're just going to change the skip change password and make sure that we reference the tenant, of course. And then it goes to drops down to the next method, which is setting up Filia. And we'll see that here. And we application controller. We add the authenticate tenant. So every time you call the application controller, it authenticates a tenant. It's set your max tenants and your invalid access. And then we add our roots into thing, which is simply to set the home index. And yeah, nope, that's it on that one. So we do want to generate a controller, home controller with an index. We want to set the active record session migration. We want to generate a model that's a tenant. And so we can see that all that happens here. Here we generate the controller and the index. Here we create a helper and blah, blah, blah. We do the active record sessions. And we generate the model of the tenant. And we generate another one of the join table, so we know that the users go into the tenants. We create all of that. We send the roots. Make sure that everything is up to date. And there it is. And we copy over our registrations and things like that. So we have now a Rails 6 app using Filia. Just going to drop and create and run the migrate on the table. And then we're just going to Rails S it. And let's just create a new one and go to localhost 3000. And we should have a Rails app that has the devise login but sign up. Sorry for this stupid thing. So let's just create. This is the file for tenant. Sorry. I wish it didn't do that, but that's the way it is. So here's my tenant name, which you can't see. Tenant 1 I'm putting in there. I'm just going to put sign up. And it has created a tenant. And I can just do the confirmation here. And so it's confirmed. And now if we go over and let's take a look at in console. Tenant last, we can see we've created my tenant 1. We've created my user. We didn't create a member, which I think is fine. And so if we create some new models, Rails G post, for instance, whichever it is, which has a title and a body and a tenant that it belongs to. Let's generate that. Let's generate a resource even. And if we look at the creator, what did I do? Oh, it's in the test app. Look at the creator. It's got that belongs to tenant. And if we look in the post, this is where we get rid of this and we say acts as tenant, and that will do all the Millia magic that we'll see in a second. So I'm gonna Rails db migrate. Oh my god. And that will create things. And we should be able to now, if I log in. I'm not gonna worry about that right now because I did something wrong. But if I go into console, tenant, set current tenant to be number 1, and we say post create title test body test body. You can see that it automatically gets the tenant of ID 1. And if I say post.all, we'll get that post. But if I just quickly log out and log back in, without setting my tenant, if I say post all, we get nothing. Because post is a tenanted object, and we don't have a current tenant. And if I created another tenant, which maybe I needed to restart this. Or, I don't know. Let's sign up and create another tenant here. Tenant, so frustrating. Tenant 2, fill plus tenant 2. Sign up. And over here, get the confirmation. There we go. And so both of those tenants are now confirmed. Now, a good question is why I can't log in. That's really helpful, isn't it? Welcome path. I think I'm missing something now that I look at it. So let's do get home, no, posts index. Not quite sure how we want to do this. Let's say /welcome to posts index as welcome. Now this, in theory, should work, I think. Log in. There's no index on the post resources post. Oh, there's. It's interesting. And sorry if you're not talking. I'm just gonna get all the posts, put it in here. Let's do a UL. Oh yeah. That, and then in the post controller, what we're gonna just do at posts equals post.all. And so this has one, oh my god, that stupid thing. So you can see that this has one test because I logged in as that first user. Now, if I think users sign out. Wow, it really doesn't work well with the, if you change the size, right? Because I need to destroy session. Alright, I'm just gonna choose another profile. And we'll sign in as that second user. Tenant 2. And you can see he has no posts. So he can't see the posts that this person can see. So he has a post there of test, and he doesn't have a post at all. So it is tenanting, it is siloing the data. So it's quick and frantic, and maybe this is of help. You know, for me, I'm doing this mostly because I needed Millia updated for Rails 6, and now it's working for Rails 6. So now I can update ZonMaster to Rails 6, and this was the one thing that's holding me back, so we can start in on all that great work. Hope this has been of some help. Probably not, because it's just a rambling, crazy video, totally unstructured. But thanks for watching. If you have any questions, okay, what can you ask me questions about? You can ask me questions about how I did that migration from Rails 5 to Rails 6 if it's not so clear. It's not so difficult. Just look at how... I think the thing for me that was critical was not trying to port it directly, was to create a blank Rails engine and then move the stuff over from Millia that needed to be done. So you could ask me questions about that process if you want. You can ask me questions about tenanting and how we set up all of our data to do the tenanting. And you can ask me questions about moving from Rails 5 to Rails 6. Or you can ask me questions about anything to do with Rails or whatever, or ZonMaster. Thanks for watching. More coffee for me. See you soon.